At World Service, we believe that while certain hazards are inherent to every job task, each task can be performed safely every time. The employer's responsibility is to provide adequate equipment, to provide employee safety training, to ensure enforcement of the policies and procedures. Employee responsibility is to comply with the policies and procedures, to observe and react to minimize workplace hazards, to display good, safe, and productive work habits and attitudes, to maintain physical and mental competence required for the full completion of your job, and to look out for the well-being of yourself, fellow workers, and your company.
Years ago, the workplace was often a dangerous place to be. But that was before employers and the government got together to make the workplace safer.
The government agency in charge of workplace safety is the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA.
Your employer spends a lot of time and effort to comply with OSHA regulations, making the jobs here as safe as possible. But your employer can't do it alone.
Now that you're a part of this company, a lot of the responsibility for safety is on your shoulders. Whether you work in an industrial factory,
or at an assembly plant,
or wherever you work, you need to know how to work safely and how to keep your co-workers safe too.
let's start with the OSHA poster. All employers are required to put up a poster like this one. Now you should read it to learn about your safety and health rights.
Today we're going to take you on a tour to point out some of the things that you should know about staying safe on the job. Along the way, you'll also hear some valuable advice from safety experts and employees who know how to play it safe.
The three main topics we're going to look at are the work environment,
safe use of equipment,
and what to do in case of emergency. Now, not all of what you're going to see today will apply to your job. You'll get more specific safety information later from your trainer or supervisor.
Let's get started by looking at the work environment. When we look at the work environment, a good place to start is with housekeeping. Clean and well-maintained work areas are safe areas. They also look more professional and make a statement about the company's concern about accident prevention. Keep storage areas free from materials and obstructions that could cause tripping, fire, explosion, or even attract pests. Work areas, passageways, and stairs should be kept free of clutter. Collect waste and dispose of it in proper containers. Waste containers should have lids. Glass and other sharp objects must be properly disposed of. Through the science of ergonomics, your workstation and the equipment you use are adjustable to fit your body. This helps prevent injuries caused by poor workflow design, injuries that can be long-term and affect you even after you retire. The parts of your body that are most subject to stress and strain include your eyes, ears, hands, wrists, arms, shoulders, back, and legs. Try to avoid long stretches of repetitive twisting, forceful, or flexing motions while you work. Be sure to take breaks and use good posture. Repetitive motion injuries can happen if you repeat the same action over and over again. If you feel pain, report it to your supervisor. And if you come up with a better way to perform a job that avoids repetitive motion, tell your supervisor. Continuous use of vibrating tools and equipment can also cause serious injury. To minimize your risk, don't use any more force than you need to. Use cushioning or padding.
The best way to do a job is the most ergonomic way to do a job, and it works out for both the employer and the employee. We looked at hand tools, trying to find tools that fit the operator. And we also looked at adjustable height tables, trying to bring the work to the operator and make it as adjustable as possible. Also done things with packaging. We've got the packaging at the appropriate level for the operator. As a result of the ergonomic improvements we made, we've seen a reduction in worker injuries and worker complaints.
Another important thing to keep in mind about the workplace is proper lifting. Be careful, especially if lifting is a part of your job. Get help with large loads, whether it's from other people or by using material handling equipment. Find out the weight limits for manual lifting for your job. If you're going to lift, bend at the knees, letting your legs do the work, not your back. Keep the load as close to your body as possible. You might want to split larger loads into smaller ones. In many occupations, falls are a leading cause of injury and death. If you're going to be working at heights, check with your supervisor and use the fall protection equipment provided. Survey the work site. Make sure there's a way to safely walk on all work surfaces. Falls can also occur when you use ladders and scaffolds, and they happen for a variety of reasons, including failure to inspect before using, wearing wet, greasy, or oily shoes, and using poorly maintained ladders and scaffolds. Be sure to choose the right ladder for the job. You can help prevent injury or even death by inspecting ladders frequently, using them properly, and keeping them in good shape. When you place a ladder, make sure it has a good solid base and watch out for any electrical hazards. Here's the right way to climb a ladder. Make sure your shoes are clean, face the ladder, use both hands, only one person at a time, hoist tools up only after you reach the top, and don't lean out to do the work. Only use scaffolds that have been properly assembled using the right materials. Sometimes fall protection must be used as well. Personal protective equipment, or PPE, protects workers from hazards that are caused by work processes, the environment, radiation, chemicals, or mechanical irritants. PPE must be kept clean and in excellent condition. There are many types of PPE. Eye protection guards you against several types of hazards. Eye protection includes eye goggles, safety glasses, welding helmets, and face shields. All of these must fit over your prescription lenses if you wear them. Keep in mind that face shields alone don't offer enough protection. Always wear safety glasses or goggles under a face shield. Sometimes workers don't wear eye protection even when it's provided. Unfortunately, that's why many eye injuries occur that don't have to. And don't think that regular prescription eyeglasses will protect your eyes.
The individual was a setup tech, and what they do as a part of their job is purge the press. And when they're purging the press, it's a process of making sure that the plastic is forced out of the press. And he had safety glasses on and was looking into the barrel of the press to ensure that it was clean. And at that point in time it wasn't, and the molten plastic belched and sprayed his face and head with molten plastic. The individual is blind in one eye, and had he not been wearing his safety glasses, as you can see, he would have been blind in the other eye too, because this was his good eye. The right eye was his good eye, and this prevented him from losing that eye. Had he not been wearing his safety glasses, he would be totally blind today.
Foot hazards include compression, puncture, slipping, wetness, chemicals, extreme heat, and cold. Foot protection includes safety shoes and boots and add-on guards that cover your own shoes. Hands are potentially threatened by mechanical, environmental, and irritating chemical hazards. Gloves are the most common type of hand protection. Use the right glove for the job because they are job specific. Good fit is a must too. To protect your head, wear your hard hat where required. Know how to wear it properly and how to adjust it. Check your hard hat often for damage. They don't last forever. Request a replacement when necessary. Respirators are another form of PPE that protect against hazards in the air. It's very important to get a good fit and wear the right type of respirator for the hazards involved. levels of noise in the workplace puts many workers at risk for temporary or permanent hearing loss. High frequency or high-pitched noise is the most damaging. Protect your hearing by wearing hearing protection devices such as earplugs and ear muffs. Use devices provided by your employer.
It's important to wear hearing protection because even though you might not think it's loud or you may get used to it, it still can do damage to your ears. The reason I wear earplugs is a personal reason because my grandfather worked for many years and they never wore ear protection then. And it was, you know, trucks and coming and going just as loud as it is in our plant. When he got to be in his 80s or so, or even earlier, it's like, what? And he had to wear a hearing aid, and I just don't want to, I don't want to take that chance.
Good housekeeping. All employees need to keep a clean work area, whether that's in the shop, doghouse, vehicles, or location. Keep all obstacles clear for exits and fire extinguishers. Close workbenches and toolboxes, drawers, and when they're not in use. And clean up spills immediately. Don't wait for somebody to slip over a slick surface because you didn't want to pick it up right away. Required PPE. Head protection. You need to wear a hard hat, ANSI approved, Z89.1. Eye protection must be also ANSI approved, standard Z87.1. Safety glasses, goggles, or even a face shield if required. Foot protection must be steel-toe boots or shoes. Make sure they have good soles on them for traction. Hand protection, appropriate gloves. We don't want to just use any type of gloves. We want to make sure we're using the right glove for the right job, just like a tool. Hearing protection, earplugs, ear muffs, and protective clothing. FRCs, flame retardant clothing, and make sure that our FRCs are tucked in and not left unbuttoned or out the way they're not supposed to be.
Each year in the U.S., many workplace pedestrians are injured in accidents involving forklifts.
Forklift operators have to play it safe, but so do you whenever you're around one.
Use pedestrian walkways whenever they're available. Look both ways before stepping into an aisle, around a corner, or through a doorway. Be aware of blind spots. Use the convex mirrors to see if a forklift is coming. Listen for warnings. Forklift operators will sound the horn to alert you. When a forklift approaches, make sure the operator sees you. Never walk, work beneath, or ride on raised pallets or forks. Operators are trained to yield the right-of-way and not to speed or make sudden turns. To promote safe operation of forklifts, only those who are completely trained are allowed to operate them.
Well, when you're driving a forklift, you should be beeping your horn, sounding it to make the people aware that you are in that area coming along. When I drive a forklift, I don't always see the pedestrian walking, so you have to be aware of that person driving the forklift also.
In areas where hazardous materials, chemicals, equipment, or processes are present, certain types of hazard warning signs need to be posted. Danger signs, which are predominantly red, warn about immediate hazards. Caution signs, predominantly yellow, warn about potential hazards and unsafe practices. Exit signs in red letters against a white background must mark all exits and exit routes in the workplace. Safety instruction signs are predominantly green and white and provide general instructions and suggestions relating to safety measures. Annual summaries of occupational injuries and illnesses that have occurred in the workplace must be posted where employees can easily see and read it, usually where other notices are posted. Annual summaries must be posted for at least 30 days.
Now, the equipment that you use depends on the kind of work you do. But no matter what equipment you use, from a stapler to a 1,000-ton press, and everything in between, there's a right way and a wrong way to operate and maintain that equipment.
You should only use the tools and equipment that you are authorized to use. This includes office equipment. Even something that seems harmless, like opening a copier to clear a paper jam, can cause an injury or damage the equipment if you don't know the correct procedures. One of the most common safety hazards in the office occurs when file drawers are left open. Make sure file drawers are closed when no one's around. Tools must be used properly. Don't take shortcuts by using tools in ways they were not intended. Cutting tools must be sharp. Dull ones can be dangerous. Power tools must be able to be turned on and off quickly with a single finger motion. When you're using a tool, direct it away from other workers. Damaged tools are unsafe. Regularly inspect and maintain all tools. Beware of loose handles and worn cords or hoses. Let your supervisor know if tools are in poor condition. Unsafe tools must be either repaired or replaced. Some tools, machinery, and equipment can trap your hands or clothing and pull you into the machine. Some equipment can send sparks or fragments flying. Machine guards, screens, and shields protect against injuries. All exposed moving parts must be guarded. Guards must not be removed just because you think they're in the way. If guards are defective or missing, the equipment must be taken out of service. Electricity can cause shock, electrocution, fires, and explosions. To safely handle electricity, it is important to understand how it works, which materials conduct electricity, and which resist it. You should also know the hazards electricity presents and how to avoid them. Electrical problems will be dealt with by qualified persons who have had specialized training to work on or near exposed energized parts. Insulation and circuit protective devices like fuses and circuit breakers are there to protect you. Extension cords are meant for temporary use only. Don't use cords that have missing third prongs because they're not grounded. And don't strain extension cords in any way. Doing so causes weak points. Respect lockout/tagout devices. They protect you and your co-workers from accidental exposure to energized equipment or circuits.
Now let's talk a little bit more about lockout/tagout. It's the process of using locks and tags to block the flow of energy from a power source so equipment won't accidentally release energy or start up. Lockout/tagout is used when equipment or machinery is being serviced or maintained.
The flow of energy is blocked by locking a power source in the off position. The device also warns others not to restore energy to that power source. In some cases, both a lockout device and tag are used. Lockout/tagout affects everyone who comes in contact with energy-powered machinery and equipment, although only certain workers are qualified to apply lockout devices and tags. Lockout/tagout devices must not be bypassed or ignored. Locks and tags can only be removed by an authorized person, the person who put them there.
We had a situation with lockout/tagout. There was an employee who bypassed our rules. He opened a guard on the machinery without locking it out, reached his hand into there. There was a shaft that rotates about 80 RPM, and it grabbed his coat and pulled his arm in all the way up to his shoulder and crushed his arm severely. So it's very important that you use lockout/tagout. You may not think a shaft can injure you, but it really can.
Welding and hot work areas need to be properly ventilated to prevent the accumulation of harmful fumes and gases. If excessive fumes develop, leave the area immediately. Use flame-resistant clothing and PPE. Welding helmets are a must. Respirators may be needed if the ventilation is not adequate. Don't wear clothing that could catch sparks, such as cuffs on pant legs or open pockets. A fire watcher is a designated person who watches for unsafe conditions while you weld, and for a period of time after you finish. Keep combustible materials away from the work site. If you pass by or work near a welding area, don't look directly at the bright arc, or even at the bright reflections of the arc. In addition to the intense visible light, welding also emits ultraviolet and infrared radiation that can harm unprotected eyes and skin.
Your company has a specific set of rules that covers vehicle safety.
Before you drive, you should be properly trained and authorized to drive that vehicle. Make sure the vehicle's brakes, lights, and warning devices are working properly, and that you and any passengers are wearing seat belts. If you drive a company vehicle as part of your job, follow your company's policies and all traffic laws that apply. When you work with hazardous chemicals, you have a right to know what they are, how to protect yourself, and how to respond to emergency situations. The way to learn this is through hazard communication. First is the Material Safety Data Sheet, or MSDS. The MSDS tells about a chemical's physical properties and how to safely handle it, including the necessary personal protective gear, what first aid treatment to give when someone is exposed, and how to respond to accidents like spills and fires. Other forms of hazard communication include labels, which are affixed to chemical containers to identify the chemicals and the hazard warnings. In addition, employers can use signs and posters to inform workers about potential hazards in certain areas of the workplace. Training is another form of hazard communication. By law, workers encountering chemical hazards in the workplace must receive hazard communication training.
Safety data sheets. SDSs. Know where your SDSs are located. Read and understand SDS while you are handling chemicals. Use required PPE as directed by the SDS sheets. Also, if you are taking those onto a location, you are required to have those SDS sheets on you at all times. Lockout tagout procedures. Locate the energy source. Then we're going to notify the affected persons of the shutdown. The affected persons are anyone on that job location, or not just the people working on the machine or whatever we're tagging out. Then we're going to shut down the energy source. Apply the lock and tag, make sure our name and number is on there. Make sure that our lock, that we are the only ones with a key to the lock. Then we're going to try to start the equipment to ensure the correct energy source has been locked out. Thus evaluating the released energy, whether or not we have more than one power source, or whether or not we need to make sure that all hydraulic fluid is drained. Then we're going to perform the work, remove the tools in preparation of the restart, notify the affected persons of the restart again, and remove the lock and tag from the piece of equipment. Then we will restart the equipment and make sure that the piece of equipment or machinery is working correctly.
No matter how much safety planning you and your employer do, emergencies can happen in the workplace. Every employee needs to know what to do in case of fire, severe storms, injuries, chemical releases, and other emergencies.
Know how to contact 911 operators. If 911's not available, you should know where to find the emergency phone numbers for hospitals, doctors, and ambulances. OSHA requires employers to keep records of employee injuries. If you're injured on the job, even if it's just a minor injury, report it to your supervisor immediately. Every workplace should have at least one person on site with a valid first aid certificate who can analyze situations and treat certain serious injuries. If a worker needs first aid, call for help. Know where first aid supplies are located in your workplace, and be sure to let your employer know when supplies are low. Know where eye wash and shower stations are, and how to use them in case you get chemicals in your eyes or on your skin. Some work sites have automatic external defibrillators, life-saving devices that can restore normal heart rhythm. Know who is trained to use one and who is trained in CPR. You should also know the signs of frostbite, hypothermia, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke, and what to do if they occur. Minimize contact with blood-borne pathogens by following the exposure control plan in place at your worksite. Blood-borne pathogens found in human body fluids can lead to disease and even death. Follow universal precautions. Treat all blood and certain body fluids as if they were known to be infectious. Wash your hands often. Use the proper gloves and personal protective equipment. Always follow proper procedures for decontamination and disposal of blood and other potentially infectious materials and items that can come in contact with them. You should also know and recognize the biohazard symbol.
How to handle chemical spills and releases is outlined in a regulation called Hazardous Waste Operations and Emergency Response, or HAZWOPER. HAZWOPER requires employers to have plans for emergency response to hazardous substance releases.
Some work sites have emergency response teams, people who know how to handle spills and releases. Others use outside companies to respond. If you're the first to discover a spill, don't attempt to clean it up yourself. Instead, follow the procedure you've learned. Contact your supervisor or emergency response team, or activate an alarm. If a spill or release emergency does occur, listen carefully to who's in charge. Know the location of exits and escape routes. Confined spaces include tanks, vessels, bins, boilers, ventilation and exhaust ducts, sewers, manholes, tunnels, and pipelines. Other examples include open-top spaces more than 4 feet deep, such as pits and tubs. Because of their limited size, confined spaces are more likely to harbor toxic or flammable contaminants or not have enough oxygen. OSHA requires employers to have detailed procedures, including an entry permit system, before an employee can enter a permit-required confined space. Only specially trained, authorized entrants can enter them. An attendant is always required to stand by outside. If you work near confined spaces, obey signs that identify these dangerous areas.
A person who is not trained in confined space entry should never enter any space with a confined space sign around it. A person who's not trained would not know the proper procedures, the proper test methods. In the confined space you'll find many different gases, carbon monoxide being one of them. Most of these gases are invisible. A lot of them you cannot smell, you cannot taste, and you won't know what hit you until after it's over.
Your company has plans that state what people are supposed to do in case of fire, hazardous spills, natural disasters, and other emergencies. The plans tell you who to contact and what steps to take. Once an emergency action plan has been implemented, listen to the person in charge. You should also know established evacuation plans ahead of time, where alarms are, and when to use them, and where extinguishers are located, and how to use them.
In case of fire, it's important to remember that fire consumes oxygen as it burns. In fact, more people die from lack of oxygen than they do from burns. Move quickly to evacuate, but don't panic.
If you're caught in a smoke or fire-filled room or building, hold a wet cloth over your nose and mouth and stay close to floor level. This will minimize the amount of smoke you breathe in. Use a shield to protect yourself as you escape. Once you're outside, move away from the building as quickly as possible to your pre-arranged assembly area. Be sure to check in with the person in charge. Prevention is the best form of fire safety. Take proper precautions when working with electricity, flammable and combustible liquids, LP gas, and heating devices. Don't smoke where you're not supposed to. Keep work areas clean of combustible and flammable materials, and keep them clear of obstacles so everyone can easily use the escape routes.
A lot of things go into staying safe on the job. Now that you're part of the workforce, it's important that you do your work safely, and that means helping to keep your workplace safe, using the right equipment in the right ways, and knowing what to do in case of an emergency.
Over the coming weeks and months, as you get to know more about your workplace and your responsibilities, never forget that safety is the most important part of every job.
Because no matter where you work, at the end of the day, you want to be able to hang it up and head home safely. And so does everyone else who works with you.
Reporting accidents and incidents. All on-the-job accidents and incidents must be reported. Substance abuse testing may be required under your company's policy. The employee will be required to participate in the investigation. Always contact your supervisor for information on the doctors to see what doctors fall under the workman's compensation. Accident scene protocol. Put on your flashing lights. Then we're going to get out our triangle reflectors to prevent accident from getting worse. If anyone is hurt, make sure you call 911 and get the EMTs and police there as soon as possible. Keep a level head. Do not argue about whose fault it was. Give out no information except your name, the name of the address of your company, the vehicle registration tag number, and show your driver's license if requested by the DPS officer or sheriff's officer or any other police officer. Do not leave the scene of an accident until justified in doing so. If possible, do not move your vehicle until the police arrive. Get names, addresses, phone numbers of witnesses. Write down license plates, numbers, and vehicles at the vehicles at the scene. Or you can get out your cell phone and take pictures of any license plate numbers as well. Then also make sure you notify your supervisor. Job Safety Analysis, or JSAs, an assessment of risk associated with the work-related operations, should be performed by supervisors who are knowledgeable of duties being performed and has the ability to identify hazards associated with the duties performed by employees. This should be in great detail. You should be able to tell a story about it. Write in great detail where someone who has never done your job task would know what hazards are associated with the task by your JSA. Also, every employee would need to sign this JSA that is going to be out there working. They also need to be knowledgeable of all the steps associated with that JSA. They don't just need to sign the paper or the document. They need to make sure that they know every hazard that is associated with each task they perform. Behavioral-based safety observation. Employees will be required to participate in our behavioral-based safety program. Workers conduct observation and provide feedback on safety practices within their work areas. Workers provide data used for recognition, problem solving, and continuous improvement of the workplace. We expect you to be able to recognize factors as well as the hazards associated with doing your job and how to work safely. Short Service Employee Safety Program. A minimal level of orientation training will be provided for all short service employees regardless of the job assignment. This training is based on hazards at each location and the task that the individual is expected to perform. A mentor will be assigned to each short service employee for the duration of the 6-month program. Mentor provides guidance for the safe behaviors, company safety, and environmental programs and policies. Short SSE program. Short service employees will wear distinctive color green hard hats or green stickers or any other sticker that identifies the short service employee. Progress meetings, formal meetings between the SSE and his supervisor or mentor. The purpose of these meetings is to provide performance feedback after 1 month, 3 months, and the final meeting will be held at 6 months. The 6-month meeting is a formal determination on whether the short service employee can work without posing a hazard to themselves or others. If concerns remain about working safely after 6 months, the supervisor will evaluate the situation and develop a plan going forward. Stop work authority. Every employee has the authority to stop any task or operation if, in his or her opinion, a condition exists in which could cause injury to them, others, equipment failure, or property damage. Work will not continue until workplace concerns have been adequately addressed. Employees will not be reprehended for using stop work intervention. All stop work interventions shall be documented for lessons learned and corrective measures to be put in place to make sure we don't have any other incidents. Other key safety rules. Always know location of the first aid kits and fire extinguishers. Always make sure that we have 2 pairs of protective gloves in the first aid kits and a CPR shield. And always make sure fire extinguishers have annual inspection tags on them and that they are fully charged and ready to go. Emergency numbers are posted near phones for easy access. Familiarize yourself with escape exits, emergency shutoff valves, switches, and maintain clear access to them. Smoking is allowed only in authorized areas, and familiarize yourself with shop equipment and other pieces of equipment before using them.